My support for Iranians and Iranian nationalism is undying and unwavering, and I would also like to emphasize in this video that someone who I made a video on previously attacked me and claimed that I am not loyal to Iran, but the truth is I am very loyal to Iran, and in this video I will take a look at my future hope for Iran, and that is the establishment of a greater Iran. Now, before I proceed with my response, I would just like to say that this individual was Sam Shahbaz, and unfortunately, he has the wrong idea about me. He probably thinks just because I am from Pakistan, I support some sort of Pakistani nationalist movement or that I am a staunch Islamist or whatever. But this is not at all the case, and I will present my opinions on the Greater Iran project in this video. In my opinion, the state of Pakistan is an artificial state that is made up of an Indic territory as well as an Iranic territory, and this is unfortunate. And this state was only created in 1947 after a desire to partition the subcontinent across religious lines. I support the complete dismantlement of the Pakistani state as well as Afghanistan and Tajikistan and also other countries in Central Asia to incorporate into a greater Iran. But before the Iranians can realize this vision, there needs to be a racial hegemony established within these territories, and race is very important for the future of greater Iran, and many Iranian nationalists today need to realize this. After historically Iranic territories are included into Greater Iran, the Persian core must be maintained, particularly the West Iranian Persian core, as they represent the purest of the ancient Iranians. And as for the other regions such as Afghanistan as well as Tajikistan and Pakistan, unfortunately those populations have significant admixture and they will be a part of Greater Iran, but nonetheless they must not be a part of a genetic or a eugenics movement advocating for the mixing of these populations with the average Iranian. For this reason, I am opposed to direct incorporation of these territories into Iran, but nonetheless, I advocate them as part of a confederacy between these nations and the Iranian heartland, which is the nation of Iran today. And when this is established, there will be greater peace and there will also be coexistence without much genetic mixing, and this is what I am advocating for. Thus, a greater Iran in the form of a confederacy can indeed be established, though the racial element cannot again be overlooked, and race is very important for Iranians going forward. So, in this model, the Confederate States would be a part of the greater Iranian territory or sphere of influence, but nonetheless, there won't be much genetic mixing between Afghans or even Tajiks or even Pakistani Iranics and the essential Iranian population. Here is Sam's post questioning my loyalty towards Iran and Iranians, and I must say that I am indeed in favor of dismantling Pakistan, reclaiming Baluchistan, and pushing the Taliban into the Urdu-speaking regions of South Asia. Though I must say that my vision for this is more of a confederate approach to politics, as I am very much opposed to these mixed populations, now largely not the same as the ancient populations residing there and more mixed with Indics and also East Asian and Turkic populations. And for this reason and with this in mind, I think that it would be better if there would be a confederate system set up based on racial elements as well and ethnic elements also, as opposed to straight up incorporation. I have also gained a bit more respect for Sam now after this post, in which he acknowledged that the ancient Persians were a hybrid population between the steppe populations and the incoming Iranics and the native Elamites, and this is very good to see, and this suggests that he's dropped his wanting to turn Iran into a European country, and I think this is really nice to see, so I'd like to commend Sam on this aspect. Unfortunately, recently Sam called the Persians of today Persians, and this is very interesting, and this is ironic considering that I consider Sam to be a Persian Iranian, and for this reason there's no reason why he should have any hatred towards the Persians. Nonetheless, I find this aspect of him very interesting. With that said, Sam has actually done a lot in the past for Iranian and Persian nationalism, so again I commend him for his past efforts. Now, with the racial question, the reason why I am very staunchly opposed to racial mixing between so called Eastern Iranics and the Western Iranic core is because the majority of the Eastern Iranics look like this, and you can see that these are Pashtuns, particularly those associated with the Taliban regime, and they have a very non Iranic phenotype, unfortunately. The former eastern territories of Iranshar also contain many other ethnicities that have mixed into the general Iranic population, and those are the Hazaras, as you can see from this image, as well as other Mongolic and Turkic groups. And for this reason, there needs to be some sort of regulation in these territories if they are to be incorporated into a greater Iran. This is the vision many pan-Iranists and Iranian nationalists have for Greater Iran. However, I think that this is not feasible, and the only territories that should be included are Azerbaijan as well as parts of Afghanistan, Tajikistan, and Western Pakistan. For these reasons, I feel that a Greater Iran is certainly feasible, but one must not overlook the genetic as well as the racial ramifications of such a project. Historically, the Greater Iran project was certainly much more feasible because in Central Asia, which was a major territory of Iran, you had a largely Iranic population with no Turkic or Asiatic influences, and these peoples included the Khwarezmians, the Sogdians, the Margians, as well as the Bactrians, among others. In fact, after the Achaemenids and the Macedonian conquest, you had a revitalized Iran with the establishment of the Parthian dynasty, who did indeed originate in Central Asia, and again, Iran's ties to the region were strong. That's why the Parthians were able to maintain strong control over the region despite it being a bit more diminished than the control that previously existed in the region under the Achaemenids. The Turks only began infiltrating Central Asia at the end of the Sasanian period towards the reign of King Khosrow II, and this is when Iranian control was truly diminished over the region. But despite this, the Iranic population of Central Asia were the majority, likely making up around 90 to 95% of the region. It is worth mentioning, however, that despite the Turkic population increasing in the region over time, they were still largely a minority by the time of the Khwarezmian Empire in 1215, and most of the Khwarezmian elites were Iranized and Persianized, and for this reason, this was the peak of ancient Iranian civilization during the medieval period. But unfortunately, the majority of Central Asia's Iranic population would be killed off by the Mongol invasions as well as the Timurid invasions that followed. In the 15th century, with the Safavid revolution, another nationalist Iranic empire would be established, though despite partially being of Turkic origins, and that was the Safavid dynasty, and this dynasty again incorporated the territories of Greater Iran, though at a much lower scale. Nonetheless, it truly presided over a period of great prosperity during the early modern period. The territorial peak of Iran after the Muslim conquest, however, came during the Afsharid period, which was another Turkic dynasty, largely Iranized, however, and this is a map of Iran at its peak under the Afsharids, and you can see that the territory is vast, and I think this is a much more reasonable model for a contemporary Greater Iran, which would exist under the model of a confederacy. Considering all of this great history, I think that a Greater Iran is certainly justifiable, though I again believe in a confederate model, so something more like a confederacy would serve Iranians better, and also I am opposed to racial mixing between the core Western Iranians and Iranics from these territories that I previously mentioned. As you saw, my loyalty to the nation of Iran is unwavering and is very strong, and for this reason I feel that if Iran is to succeed, a Greater Iran can certainly be established, though as mentioned this would be under more of a confederate nation, with the Persians taking up the mantle of leading these other Iranic territories and guiding them towards success, which is something they have unfortunately not experienced for a very long time. With that said, the racial and genetic makeup of these peoples must be considered if they are to be incorporated into a Greater Iran, and for this reason I think that a confederacy would work best as mentioned, and also that there needs to be some sort of genetics caretaking for these populations which have long since mixed over time. Thus, once all of these factors are considered, a greater Iran can certainly be established, with the Iranians of today, particularly the Western Iranics, leading the nation. That is it for my analysis on this subject, and for those of you who stuck to the end, I'd like to thank you, and I'd also like to thank everyone else who's watched this video, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you once again.